Oh, no, thank you.
I don't
Get
see
out of
anything.
there.
Cam,
hand on
the one tree it's focused on.
I didn't notice that the first time.
I did not notice that.
Oh!
You gotta get out of there!
Holy fuck.
Hello and welcome back to Chill and Thrill Reviews, where we dive into the dark, the disturbing, and the downright terrifying. If you're watching this, you probably love horror just as much as we do. In this episode, we will be taking a look at The Ritual. The Ritual follows a group of 4 friends who reunite for a hiking trip in the remote forests of Sweden to honor a fallen friend. When they decide to take a shortcut through the dense wilderness, they soon find themselves lost and haunted by a terrifying, unseen presence. The group stumbles upon strange symbols, abandoned cabins, and ancient sacrificial rituals, all pointing to a malevolent entity stalking them. As paranoia and fear sets in, the friends must face not only the physical dangers of the forest, but also their inner demons. The chilling atmosphere and psychological tension will keep viewers on edge, wondering what's lurking just beyond the trees. I didn't really take notes that this movie. Like, I watched this movie, I think twice by now, but I don't.
This is my third time.
I think this is my third time as well. But it's weird because I didn't remember the second half pretty much at all. So like the second half was a complete surprise for me. I don't know if that's because I've been drinking while I was watching it or if I just passed out before it gets to that point. But it was like everything after pretty much the murder house, where there was the Wicker Man and everything. Pretty much everything after that was fresh. Like I didn't remember any of that. I did remember that one scene of the Jotun picking up the Swedish girl with the fire in the background. That scene is like everywhere. You probably have seen it on TikTok.
I've seen that scene before on TikTok, yeah,
So-
and I've never seen this movie.
So I think, and you can go back and look in the clip editor, hint hint. I think that girl was the little girl from the picture from the tent that they found.
That was a good call out. You said that during the movie, and I think you might be onto something there. I think it was the little girl from that Swedish family, because when they were digging up the remains of that family of that tent, they saw a mother, father, and I think it was a daughter. And I think it was that daughter who survived, and she was the chosen one of that group.
Right, I think every group that comes through it has a chosen one.
Yeah.
I think.
I wonder.
Well, remember the girl said that he was chosen because his pain was greater. So clearly so whenever people go there, it has to be somebody who already has a great pain. And for Luke, it was the guilty conscience of he's the reason his friend died. Like,
Oh,
I didn't pick
yeah,
up on
because
that. I didn't hear that.
Yeah,
part.
she said it right to him. He's like, "Why me?" And she goes, "Your pain is greater."
I didn't pick up on that.
She didn't say why me. She just said your pain is great.
That's all she said to him.
Are you sure? I thought he said, "Why me?"
But I guess
don't
that
know.
implies that his pain was greater than the others, because that was going to be one of my questions: is how do they determine who gets picked? Because like, if Curtis's theory is correct, why was the Swedish girl picked?
Maybe,
Instead
and
of
this
the
is
mom
just
or
shot in the dark.
I forgot to
her
turn off my
parents
light. I'm
were
going to do that right
abusive.
now. Sorry.
That's what I was gonna say, Kurt. It's shot in the dark, but like Curtis just said, maybe her parents were abusive.
That could be true. It could.
You know, there wasn't really anything said about her family. There really is no way to determine for sure that she was the girl from that. So we don't
Let's
know.
just say,
but
can I
that's the
just
shot in
say
the dark.
something? The design of the monster itself was so cool.
It is very.
It's
cool.
it's like a
that a
humanoid
lot.
almost. Like it's like crouched down, but it also has like all the shit going on above it.
So it's got like what, a couple humanoid shapes. It's got the antlers, and then the eyes are in the belly, and it just makes it so very unsettling. Like if you could just imagine walking through the woods and just stumbling upon that. Like, what are you
I'd
to
fucking
do with
At first, I would think it was a moose at first because of how tall it is.
Yeah.
But like, I would realize quickly that it's not a moose.
Not with those glowing orange eyes.
I'm curious of two things. One, at the very start of the movie, as you remember, there was a big something that looked like a moose in the trees. Why did it kill that? It seems to have a grudge against people and humans. So what? Because it's hunting for souls and for suffering. So why was there an animal?
I interpreted that as like that's where its territory starts.
That
you know
yeah,
what? That's good.
So that's
yeah.
one of the ideas. I was kind of thinking that it was using that to already influence these people, already inflict fear and agony.
Start to influence fear. That's why it was like a fresh kill.
So they were like, it's not a human, but there's a.
That would make sense. That would make sense too. That would make sense too because of like how it has the. It was like a fresh kill. It knew that they were there. That's why it had a fresh kill there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. And the other of my two things was right at the end there, after he forced him to kneel. That thing looked like it got up to pray. Like, what the fuck was happening there?
I don't know what that
was.
was.
Telling him to pray.
But it stretched all the way out. Was that it trying to like
influence
its will, or was that it like praying to Loki? Because it mentioned that it was the son of Loki.
That's what I was wondering, was if he was praying to Loki.
Maybe because it did try to force him onto the ground to like submit to it, I think.
Yeah.
So maybe it was trying to just get it to do that, and it didn't like that he didn't want to. So it decided that it was time to try to kill him. But then he got out of the woods, so.
Yeah.
And I think it's bounded to the woods.
That's what it seems like. There's like a certain territory that it's able to leave and enter.
So I'm gonna get right into my ranking.
Oh,
because
okay.
I've made up my mind. I've had plenty of 10 out of 10s, 9 out of 10s, 8 out of 10s.
I think you've had like one of each, but like.
Yeah.
This is our third film.
This is our fourth film. Fourth film. Four.
Well, no. Well, maybe. I don't know how this.
Maybe it depends. I don't know how the release order is, but objectively, this is the fourth film that we've seen together. So, I'm gonna say, compared to those films, this one was weaker.
Really?
So, yes,
compared to,
did enjoy.
Compared to like Bone Woman or.
Yeah. Yep.
Really?
Yep, Bone Woman had me on my edge of the seat the whole time. There were certain points of this movie that I was bored. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
But I did enjoy the monster, and I did enjoy when the terror was up, especially the dream state. I really like the dream state stuff. I'm gonna give it an 8, maybe a 7.5. No, I'm gonna give it an 8. I'm gonna give it an 8, a hard 8, and that's it.
That's still a really good score. That's right around where I was sitting, was an 8, because similar to movies that we've watched in the past, there's a lot left up to the imagination with this one, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. There's so much, like what we've been talking about. Was it praying to Loki? Was it trying to get the guy?
Right. It's like you don't know what you.
What is it feeding on? Why does it
exactly.
It just, there's so much left unexplained, which, like I said, isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like in this movie they went a little overboard with leaving things up to the imagination. Now, with that being said, I find forest horror that's like my top tier horror. I love anything to do with like deep forest horror. That's my shit. That's my jam. So it ranks pretty high.
If that's your jam, what's your favorite creepypasta?
Did you listen to the one that we wanted you to listen to recently? I can't remember the name of it.
I may have sent it to you guys. It's about a forest inspector who goes into an old-growth forest to inspect the lumber to be cut down, and while he's out there, he runs into something supernatural that stalks him through the forest.
Ooh.
And old growth is like, it's a forest that's been untouched for hundreds of years.
So looking at like the woods in that, I feel like that was very old growth, where it's like very tight. Example, There's not really much undergrowth.
I really like the setting.
Exactly.
I gotta say.
Grows up so high that there's no
yeah.
So it's
I gotta say.
exactly what it would be.
I gotta say that the setting is a 10 out of 10. Like Sweden, if they actually recorded in Sweden, dude, the scenery was phenomenal the whole time. That would suck if it was CGI. That makes me bummed out. But Jake, what would you rate it? Where were you at?
I feel like I'm sitting around an 8 too. The thing is, with this movie, I have come back to it time and time again. It is something that I can come back to and watch because the setup is amazing. I really like the setup. It goes right into it. Like, you're not even 10 minutes in and his friend is dead. And
you talking about the guilt that's throughout the whole movie?
Yeah,
where they're trying to feel the guilt surround them?
Like, throughout the movie, you can feel, you can kind of see from Luke's perspective, like, he has that guilt, but you kind of understand where he's coming from. Like, you don't know what you would do in a situation like that. And
you don't know what you would do in that situation until you're in that situation.
Exactly. So it's like
there's no way to predict it.
It's easy to say, like, hey, he should have protected his friend, but it's hard to say. There was 3 bladed robbers in there.
Two.
I think it was 3 in total.
It was 2, and then there was a lady that was getting robbed from the store.
I thought there was 3 robbers, but
I thought there was 3, honestly.
But regardless,
hey, editor, play back the clip where there's 2 robbers
and point out the guy who's correct.
Yeah, I want like 3 arrows that are like fucking not holographic, but like, you know how it's like outside the ding 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 ding.
Like
you are correct.
Yeah, but yeah, there's no way to tell what you would do in that type of situation until you're
right.
And
right.
I think it's cool because the protagonist,
I feel so
sad. Feel bad for him, but you can also understand like why he's in there.
Other people.
You can understand
the other people. Yeah. But they are also dick. Especially, what's his name? Dom. He's such a dick throughout the movie. He's like, oh, I'm having a hard time now. Now I'm gonna make all the problems that I've kept inside me his problems.
But and just hear me out, all right? But it made sense at the end because his nightmare was from the start, from the first cabin. His nightmare was that creature. He saw his wife, and then it ended up being that creature holding him in his hands. And so then the entire time when they're talking about this creepy shit, he's like, guys, you know, I don't want to talk about creepy shit. He's like, there's nothing creepy. It's just the woods. And then fucking Hutch died. Yeah, he was in denial.
I want to rewatch this movie so bad.
The only problem is,
honestly,
like after,
I could rewatch it.
So after everyone in that cabin experiencing the experiences that they all individually went through inside the cabin, why would they continue to pursue into the woods instead of trying to follow back the way they
So did Phil, when he was naked, were they trying to convert him into the religion at that point?
I don't think so. If anyone
I think that had something to do with. I think that's something to do with Phil's, because they all had a nightmare, right?
Right.
And so I think, and this is just left up to my imagination, I think Hutch's nightmare was being alone, because he woke up, and he pissed himself, and then sure as shit, he got dragged off and he died alone. Because he was going to send Luke off and stay with the other 2. And he said it's because you're the strongest, but I think it's because Hutch didn't want to be alone.
Ooh.
I don't think he wanted to be alone. That's exactly how he died. Was alone.
That's a good fucking point.
I think
Holy
that was
shit, Cody.
That was Hutch's nightmare. Phil's is the only one I can't fully grasp, but my theory on that one is he found that thing and it scared the shit out of him. So
he was just scared regardless of what situation he was in.
He was scared of witchcraft Because he said right away, he's like, that's witchcraft. That's what that is. And then he woke up naked praying to it. He's terrified of witchcraft.
Dude, could you imagine?
And in the end,
you wake up and you're praying to an effigy.
It's pretty
I'd probably tell you guys to kill me.
But like, I don't know if it mentioned it at all.
We need Cody's rating real quick.
I'm not sure if it mentioned it at all, but for Phil, when he was praying to the god, was he religious before he went there, and that's why he was so against witchery? That's why he was so against praising another idol, and maybe that's why it could have been his nightmare.
I don't think it said anything about that.
Yeah, that's the one thing.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, just to get it in the video, so that if we have to cut it short real quick, my rating is definitely an 8 out of 10 for this. I really like this movie.
So it's an overall 8 out of 10.
Was that an 8 from everyone?
Yeah.
I think so.
Jake, what did you give?
I gave an 8 because it's something that I continue to come back to. I watch it every once in a while.
It's an enjoyable movie, but there's so much left to the point where, like, I have to imagine almost.
I don't know, but I enjoy leaving things up to interpretation, because if a
I don't think there was...
if a writer or director spells out everything for you, then there's no creative sense to it,
and
you know.
I don't actually think it left that much to the imagination. Like, sure, it was a little hard to figure out until the end. I mean, it was a monster in the woods, which there's plenty of movies like that. And then at the end, it brings up Norse mythology, which, to be fair, they referenced it in the beginning, because he said, after they found that thing in there, like, it must be fucking Nordic or Swedish or some shit.
Oh yeah,
that's
right.
another thing. They were in Sweden, which they were in Sweden.
Oh,
so
I really like
it ties back. It all ties together.
I really like the scene where they come out of the cabin and all the trees have writing on them, like every
That was
tree.
insane. Like, I think Camden walked away for that specific scene, but like, it was, they walk out. When they went in, they only had one tree marked. When they left, every single tree in the forest was marked surrounding them.
So what I'm wondering is, were they all marked and they just didn't see them before because it was dark, he was shining a flashlight and he was right up close to it? Or did that happen after? And then that also raises another question. What was with the other cabins? Like, did they have other ritual grounds? Did they have other...
Right.
Because there was only one other cabin that was laid out for them to go into, that they just said, fuck that, and walked away.
Exactly, but so the first cabin had the symbols. It had the symbols, and it had the statue upstairs, but no torches. Second cabin had the torches and a path leading right up to it. They didn't go in it. Then the third one is a whole...
The torches were lit, I think.
It was like a whole campground with a bunch of people, but there was one building.
Yeah.
So, like,
Alright,
what?
boys, it's almost
what the fuck?
20 minutes in. Editor's gonna fucking
kill
us. Yeah.
Well, he can cut it down.
17.
They can deal with a longer video. So one thing that I do want to point out that I think was done really well as far as the writing for this film went. So in the beginning of the it was Hutch, Dom, Phil, and who was the main protagonist?
Luke.
Yep.
Luke. So those
So Hutch, Dom, Phil, Luke. Who was the kid? Who was the? What's the name of the friend that died at the beginning though?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it don't matter.
I mean, I can look it up really quick.
Doesn't matter what you call him. He's not gonna respond.
So because of that beginning scene, it sets a tone for Luke for the rest of the film, where he has such self-doubt, and it's like he worries that nobody else wants him around. And then there's this scene where Dom kind of attacks him and says it's your fault that he's dead. You know, if you'd have been a good friend, he wouldn't have died.
I like how it just calls him Junkie. Sorry.
Yeah. And then, you know, right after that, there's the scene with Hutch and Luke where he says, you know, I think you're the strongest one here. You're the best of us.
That scene hurt me so hard.
It's like a redemption. It's like he's almost trying to allow Luke to redeem himself. It's like a redemption arc.
Get us out of here and everything will be forgiven.
But
almost.
I think there's like a little bit of a double entendre to that, because
I
I think Hutch also was just afraid of being alone. I think he was the leader that could have led them out, but he was too afraid to do it himself, so he sent Luke to do it instead.
Do you
I think there's a few different meanings behind it.
I don't see where you guys are getting the sense that he didn't want to be alone from. He sent him out because they had to stop every so often because of Dom. So he was saying, I'll just stay with these two because it had been established that Dom and Luke were not good together. Right?
Yes,
so
but
I'll stay with him. You go get help. You know,
but
I don't see Hutch being afraid of being by himself, but with I think it was I think the decision was motivated differently than that. But to circle back to Luke, towards the end of the movie, he has another opportunity to save one of his friends, and he tries at the end. He goes to this whole redemption arc throughout the film where he's doesn't feel confident in himself, and then he's let down by his friends, and then he's inspired by his friends, and then the one friend who had faith in him dies, and he couldn't do anything about it again. And then at the end of the film, he has another chance to save his friend. And if you remember, when Luke and Dom were in that cabin together, the last thing that Dom said to him was, "Tell my wife I tried to get back to her and burn this fucking place to the ground behind you." And he did exactly that.
So I think that is redemption at its finest. I think that he redeemed himself in the eyes of Dom, because at least
he definitely tried his hardest to be that. Because obviously, the first thing that guilted him was the fact that he wasn't able to protect his friend, and that guilted him all the way throughout. But that sense of being able to complete someone's final wish helped him.
Oh, dude. I bet that helped his mental health so much at the later on in life. You know what I mean? Like when he's healing to process this.
But it was definitely interesting because you could see that character growth throughout the entire movie. You could see him being in denial at the beginning to the point where he was trying to be very defensive of his friends, to the point where he was just trying to figure out the final wishes of his friend.
What a fucking sad movie.
It is a very depressing movie.
Like, cause I'm just sitting here the whole time. I'm just like, I am imagining our friend group going through something
like that. Yeah.
And
it's hard. But then again, I wouldn't ever fucking blame any of you fuckers for not defending another one of us. You know. Because that's just a shitty thing to do.
I'll keep that in mind, he says.
Keep that in mind, Jake.
Because at the beginning of the film, you see he has the bottle of vodka, and he's like, "I could do something right now," and he doesn't. And then at the end of the film, he has the gun, and he says, "I could do something, and I'm going to."
Yeah,
it's like a complete flip of character.
Yeah, it was a good movie. I feel like some things weren't explained enough, and that's why I'm giving an 8 out of 10. Also, the main terror wasn't in the movie that much. It was more like built up.
I don't mind that. I think it did that really well. I think it wasn't a slow burner.
It's like a suspense,
by any means.
But then it also shows the monster every once in a while. Like
and we got some really good shots of it.
It is pretty.
I liked when Cody realized it was in the woods and we didn't.
Yeah,
that was cool.
That was a good scene. Because I noticed it. I've seen this movie 2 other times.
Yeah.
And looking back, I remember that scene. But watching it for the 3rd time, I noticed a shape, and I was like, oh, that's just a tree. And then it fucking moved.
Yeah.
it all flooded back to me. Like Jake was saying, this has a lot of I could rewatch this a few times. I have rewatched it a few times.
I think it has a good enough story to be rewatchable. It was very enjoyable to go to my 2 friends who haven't seen it before and suggest it, because there was a good story behind it, especially between a bro friendship, you know, because it's like we can all picture ourselves in the situations of these guys. You can always imagine certain people as specific characters, and
you can imagine yourself in any of the positions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You could be Dom, you could be Phil,
you could be the bitchy Dom, the heroic Hutch.
Hutch was a G.
He was a G. He was in a stage of denial though, because I think
poor Hutch, but he was trying to keep it together for the group,
and he was doing a great job until the end.
That might also be why the monster picked him first, because he needed the rest of them to settle into the fear.
Yeah.
Well, he needed the rest of them to settle into it, and Hutch was the best one at keeping their minds off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if that thing's feeding off of fear and suffering, and Hutch keeps bringing them back down to earth, this thing's like, alright, you gotta go, man.
Yep.
But also, if it's feeding off of fear and suffering, and Hutch died first, what was going on in Hutch's mind?
Well, it could just be that he wasn't too fearful of it. It could have been in his mind he was associating it with natural predators like a cougar.
Hey, so, I hate to cut it short, but I gotta go take the dog out at this point.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
All right. Okay, we gotta lock in and end the episode.
Okay. Who wants
Well,
to do it this time? Curtis,
what?
You're ending the episode.
what's the outro?
Don't fuck it up.
You right there. You subscriber. Thank you for watching. Follow, subscribe, or the ritual will happen to you.
Oh fuck.
Peace out.
Oh fuck.